Hey everybody, Mark, Dr. Deadwax. Time for day 37 of the Inbox Challenge. Today's numbers were picked by a 1-ton F350. Chris. Chris makes videos. Watched one today. First time. Subscribed. Chris, make more videos. Anyways, Chris picked 5 numbers. We're going to do all 5 records. So let's get into it. First record is Juicy Lucy. Get a whiff of this. Juicy Lucy were a blues rock outfit out of the UK. And this is a US pressing on the yellow Atco label. This is a first US pressing, and it's from 1841 Broadway. That's not going to focus, is it? Anyways, it's from 1841 Broadway. But most importantly, you have to check the labels and make sure it says that on there as well. Which you can see it does. So, ATGP in the Deadwax's, meaning Atlantic, George Piros. So George Piros is the mastering engineer, so the sound's about as good as it can. Right? Blues rock, slightly psych. I mean, let's call it psych rock because it gets more money on eBay like everybody else who's got this up there. But this isn't psych rock. But it's blues rock, and it's, you know, it's pretty damn good. Now, the band didn't think it was that great. This is the 3rd album by the band, and apparently there's very little of the original band left in it by this period. But one of the guys thought it was so bad that he said, get a whiff of this. Meaning, that was like why he came up with the name for the record, because it was a stinker compared to the first record. But it's actually pretty good. They do an interesting cover of Allman Brothers' Midnight Rider, which is pretty good. And they have a really good Big Lil on side 2. It's pretty awesome. It's their song. It's got this really cool kind of funky groove, like it's got this great groove to the album. I'd recommend this. I paid $5 for this in a store, and this was a great buy for $5. Cover's a little beat up, but you know, so are all my records. Comes with the original Atco inner as well. And of course it was a cutout over here. So I'd recommend this to people who kind of like blues rock and that kind of early 70s, late 60s sound. This is 1971 because it really, you know, it has all of that going for it. So the next record does not have Midnight Rider on it. But it's by the band who wrote it. And this is the Allman Brothers Band at Fillmore East. This is the live album. This is the 3rd record they released. And this is gatefold. This is a Canadian pressing. The reason why I bought this is because it's a Canadian Red Atlantic. Now, what's interesting about the Canadian pressings is, one, it has this white box here that says specially priced 2 record set, the Allman Brothers Band at Fillmore East, recorded live, Capricorn, with the numbers. But see, that information's already here. So we're kind of slow, so they had to put it on there twice, and they had to sell it to us at a nice price. Also, inside the record it says, in this 2 record set, side 1 is back with side 4, and side 2 is back with side 3, and that was to accommodate automatic record changers. However, the actual records on the Canadian pressing have side 1 and side 2 on them, and side 3 and side 4. So these are not automated stackered pressings. However, the Deadwax on these records, these are RCA Smith Falls. I've talked about that before. The Red Atlantics are all from there. These are also RCA Smith Falls pressings. But these are, I believe these are US plates because the plates are actually numbered and then scratched out. and renumbered, but the numbering on them corresponds to the U.S. stacked record pressing of 1, 4, 2, 3. So, and then they're crossed out in the Canadian code is put on 2SA-802. So this, you know, I don't really need to talk about this record. It's just absolutely fantastic. I love this record so much that I have 2 Canadian pressings. This is the exact same Deadwax. Unfortunately, like all things Red Atlantic, the records are kind of beat up. I paid, I don't remember. I got this at a show. I don't remember if I got this from a bin for like $2 or if I paid $5, but I might have paid 10. This I got at a thrift years ago, like 12 years ago for 13 years ago for $2. I didn't even own a turntable then, but I still bought the record. It's just a fantastic record. I've always thought it was kind of weird the way the record is mixed, though, because there are little bits at the end of some songs where they lead into the next song that they could have actually technically cropped out, and you never would have got this kind of cut-off fade of the next song starting. So it's kind of an interesting thing, because I've never heard another live record that kind of has this almost like cutting short of stuff. So it's kind of weird. I have a US second pressing on tan Capricorn, and I have I just picked up recently. I have another Red Atlantic somewhere in the inbox as well, and I'm hoping it has Canadian cut plates on it. But I also just recently picked up a pink Capricorn first pressing in the States for $7. So a US pressing. So I'm interested to see when I finally get around to cleaning that if the Deadwax on the original pink Capricorn plates match up to the Deadwax on this, which would prove that the plates are sent up from the US to Canada. So just one of the best live records ever. Just fantastic. And it's kind of interesting because it comes across as a live record, like a live performance, but some of the songs on there that are like 20 minutes long are not actually from the same performance, but segments of them are dropped in to others, and most of them are actually shorter than the original versions of the song. So it might be a 30-minute version of Whipping Post that was performed live, and this like 22-minute version of Whipping Post has segments from more than one performance of Whipping Post at the Fillmore. So it's quite an interesting record. You can also get bootlegs of the entire original performances, and there was also a CD subsequently released a few years ago that has the entire uncut performance as well. One of the weird things that it came with was this inner sleeve. Only one, and I don't think it's an original. I think it's just something somebody put in, but does anybody know what this inner sleeve is for? It's really weird. It's got the Superman logo in one thing, and I don't know. It's kind of a weird inner sleeve. So if anybody knows, let me know. Next record is Kansas, self-titled, first release. This is Canadian pressing on the standard red Columbia label, and this has 1A stampers on both sides, so it's first Canadian pressing. I am not a huge Kansas fan, but I got this. I think I got this for free in a box, or for less than $1 in a huge collection. But this is on Kirshner, Columbia. And you can see the Kirshner at the top. This is an interesting record. It's okay. I'm not a huge Kansas fan. There are moments on this record that kind of work for me, and there are moments where it doesn't. It's kind of like arena rock and prog mixed together, so it's kind of this strange melange of things going on that doesn't quite sit right with me. but it's okay. It's pretty good. It's, you know, it's not Carry On My Wayward Son or the pop stuff, because it's their first record, but I know lots of people like Kansas, so. Steely Dan, Gaucho. This is basically Steely Dan's last record. They put out something like 12 years later, but this was the last of the run of Steely Dan. This is a Canadian first pressing. MCA. It has TLCT, which stands for the Lacquer Channel Toronto, as the company that cut the plates and the dead wax. Comes with the original inner sleeve. Gaucho was a song they'd written for or about or in homage to Keith Jarrett, apparently, and he subsequently sued them or didn't sue them, but anyways, he eventually got a writing credit because he said that part of the song was lifted from one of his things. So Gaucho was written by all three of them. So that's that one. The by Fagan and Becker and Keith Jarrett. So that's kind of an interesting thing. I love the song Babylon Sisters on here. It has Bernard Purdie playing drums, and Bernard Purdie is just one of the best drummers in the world. He has this incredibly fucking tight timing, and he has this thing. It's called the Purdie Shuffle, and he's like a drummer that you can pick out. He's played on a couple other Steely Dan tracks, and you can just pick them out. It's like, that's Purdie. Yeah, he's just got this gorgeous, incredibly tight ability to keep time still, and he can drop a beat, and he's got this shuffle that just kind of, he can keep going forever. Oh, it's just gorgeous. And he plays on Babylon Sisters, which is just a great song. And you know, and nobody, neither Fagan or Becker, play on Babylon Sister. Like, this record is so produced that there's 42 different musicians on here, and some of the songs the guys in the band don't even play on. Fagan sings on it, but he doesn't actually even play keys on it. Another person does. And this has Jerry Marotta on it. It's got Steve Gadd on it. Like, all kinds of great drummers have come in and played on this. All kinds of great everybody's come in on this. It's just a stellar, stellar lineup. There's even a guitar solo on here on Time Out of Mind by Mark Knopfler. And it's so buried in the mix that I didn't even pick it up when I was listening to it, even though I knew it was there. So, you know, talking about the Knopfler I was talking about yesterday, where I didn't know it was there, and it was so glaringly obvious that, hey, that's Knopfler. On here, it just kind of like totally fades into the background. Becker was totally strung out on dope at this time, and he'd been, during the recording of this record, which took almost 2 years, he was hit by a car and spent like 6 months in hospital and at home recuperating, and like wasn't even in the studio. He was communicating just talking on the phone to Fagan about stuff that was going on a day-to-day basis. Also during this time, Becker's girlfriend OD'd and died. So the two of them were the only Steely Dan guys left. But by this point, there was a lot of strained emotions and relationship stuff going on between the two of them as well. So in some ways, a lot of this is Fagan, because Becker was not mentally there, and then subsequently not physically there for a lot of it. Fantastic record. Like, I always get this mentally confused with Gaudi by Alan Parsons Project. But this is a great record, and Gaudi's just terrible. But they both kind of came out within a year or two of each other, I think. I highly recommend this. I mean, this is kind of like a follow-up to Aja with that, you know, really powerfully controlled studio sound. This is a Canadian pressing made from who knows what tape, and it still sounds gorgeous. So imagine, you know, I've got to find a nice US with original plates to hear what it truly sounds like. Lots of people hate Steely Dan because they think that they're overproduced and the music's I mean, get over yourself on that, because ultimately, it's some of the... That's what's so brilliant about what it is it's such this kind of jazz rock, beautiful production. It sounds gorgeous, and if you've got a nice system, it just opens up and becomes this wonderful soundscape. Finally, some record by some band. I can't quite figure out who it is. Their name isn't anywhere on it. It's not even on the spine. It's so confusing. All there is these symbols. Anyways, this is a Led Zeppelin 4. This is it's technically a first Canadian, it's not a first Canadian pressing, but it's technically a first Canadian pressing, but it's actually more likely a second Canadian pressing. It has the first Canadian catalog numbers on it, but the first Canadian pressings were pressed by Kinney, and this is pressed by Warner Brothers. So, I don't know what you call this, repressing with the same catalog number that came out basically within a year of the original. This is a nice pressing. It's got 2 scratches that go through. They go through Stairway to Heaven and the Battle of Evermore, and one of them ticks a little bit in the Battle of Evermore, but the music kind of covers it, so it's actually a really clean copy. I'm pretty happy with it, and it sounds pretty good. And it comes with the insert as well, with the lyrics to, I think, Stairway to Heaven on it. There's a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold. Yep, that's the song. Some people like this record. I don't. Kind of done with it. I had it on 8-track. And this and Simon & Garfunkel's Greatest Hits were kind of like, when I couldn't be bothered to put a record on, they were on. So basically they played for years. I would turn on the stereo and this would play until I wanted to put a record on. It would just loop. I'd fall asleep and it would loop all night while I would sleep on headphones. So I'm kind of overdone with it, and I'm a much bigger fan of 2, 3, and presence. And I have multiple copies of this. This is, I'm going to get rid of this at some point because I'll get $20 for it, and it's a nice clean copy even with the scratch. Good record. I mean, it's not their best. I find his vocal performance isn't that great on that either. I highly recommend Gaucho. I know other people don't, but I do. Kansas, I guess you have to be a fan of them. Who's a fan of them? Do you know anybody personally who's a fan of them? I do. Allman Brothers. This is one of the records I'm chasing the dragon for the perfect copy. I think between the 2 of these, I have almost 3 clean sides. I don't think I have all 4. And Juicy Lucy, this is fun. And it's pretty good blues rock. So that's it. Chris, thanks for picking the numbers and playing along. And that's the end of day 37. And have a great day, everybody. Keep the record spinning.